Yeah, true, huh?
He's loud. We're loud, both of us.
All right. Welcome to episode 130 of Convos on the Pedicab. We're back with my friend Hiram Garcia. Hiram is known for filming Garrett Foster getting shot 3 years ago in downtown Austin. Before we get started, we got to give a big shout out to our sponsor.
Hey.
Have you been leaving your house outside again? Texas weather can wreak havoc on your home, especially your roof. And if you haven't had it inspected lately, chances are that outside elements could be making their way inside your home. So trust Balcones Roofing and Remodeling to perform a thorough roof inspection and offer long-lasting solutions. They are the only 5-star rated roofer in Austin who specialize in installing the impact-resistant F-Wave Revia and back all roof replacements with a $20,000 guarantee. To schedule a roof inspection, call 512-937-8805 or visit balconesroofsaustin.com.
Balcones Roofs, Austin. Let's go. I like it.
I know.
Thank you for sponsoring.
Of course. Shout out. You're helping to fund my art projects.
Oh, yeah.
I've been pivoting a little bit though. I've been doing a little bit less culture jamming and a little bit more serious stuff. Thanks to you. You've actually been videotaping me throughout this process.
Yeah.
How do you feel it's going?
I think it's going well. Honestly, like the seriousness.
What are we videotaping? Let's start off.
So, you came to me one time and you're like, "Hey man, there's this thing called the TikTok ban or restrict act going through federal."
You hit me up first saying that you want to do content, and I didn't know what I wanted to film. And then all of a sudden the restrict. Okay, and then that's when I hit you up.
Yeah. So like, I had been interested in like following you around for a while, seeing like how you operate, because you do all kinds of creative content and whatnot. So that gave me the idea to do kind of like a documentary. But then you reached out to me and you told me about the Restrict Act, and I was like, you know what, this sounds pretty serious. So then we've been going around at the Capitol, talking to representatives and all kinds of folks about the seriousness of this bill and how we could stop it from passing.
Yes, it is pretty serious. In case you are not aware of the Restrict Act, it gives the President of the United States, the Secretary of Commerce, and various intelligence agencies unilateral ability
I heard this so many times.
Yes, I know. To ban you from going on certain websites under the guise of them being part of a hostile foreign country with no oversight as to why they would make that decision.
Yeah.
Needless to say, this can present a lot of problems for a lot of people.
To everyone.
And so we've been talking to various representatives, people in different organizations, about this bill and why it's so dangerous and what we can do to collectively stop it, whether you're on the left or on the right. It doesn't matter, because a bipartisan group of not billionaires, but a bipartisan group of very rich, very well-connected establishment members of Congress and the Senate are in support of this, and they are being funded by a bunch of billionaires. Mm-hmm. And so, well, how come only those people get to work together, but like regular grassroots people on the left and right can't? That just seems kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's like you said, a lot of these issues going through Congress, like, they tend to be bad for everybody that doesn't have a lot of money, and everybody's distracted thinking that a lot of these issues are left, right, but really it's rich and poor, or people that just don't.
Well, it's not rich and poor. It's the connected and the powerful versus everybody else.
Yeah.
Because you could be very rich and not be very well politically connected. Like, there is that possibility. There are plenty of millionaires and multimillionaires that are not politically connected and going to Davos and able to get consulting jobs at the White House or go in and out from the public sector to the private sector every few years. So people need to people make the mistake of saying it's rich versus poor, but it's actually a little bit deeper than that. It's the politically connected versus everybody else.
But one thing is true, like people that are politically connected tend to be wealthy, so it's a very specific group within the wealthy class. That has the power.
Yes, but that's exactly what it is. It's a very specific group.
You'll never see a poor person with political connections have the same power as a rich person with political connections.
No, but you do see a lot of poor people with political connections that will shill for these people in the hopes of trying to move up and have that wealth that these other people have.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel like we notice that a lot with some of these DSA people.
What do you notice?
Well, there's we're not going to drop names on this podcast, but there's a member of the DSA who doesn't like you very much and was like always commenting and telling people not to watch your videos and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, like, the kind of work I did in 2020 was absolutely hard to digest for everybody because I didn't take any sides, and I think it's really easy to take a side and have your audience pander to a specific audience, but I didn't pander to anybody. All I did was like,
well, you took a side. You just didn't pander. You did have people knew what side you were on, but I feel like you didn't pander.
You know what's funny is that people actually didn't know what side I was on. Like some people did, maybe some people had a good idea of what my political leanings were, but what was funny to me is that conservatives thought I was conservative, liberals thought I was liberal. Unless they knew me personally or did like some kind of in-depth
I don't think so. I think a lot of conservatives knew that you were left, but the people that were like super involved and like the Red Guard type people, like those kind of fringe groups, thought you were a right winger.
I really,
that's what I think. That's what I think it was more than anything.
I saw all kinds of people come and go on that stream. I mean, you're talking about thousands of people. It's really hard to get a good idea of what everybody thinks, but the bottom line was that, like, you're right, there's just a lot of people everywhere that both like me and dislike me no matter what they politically believed.
Yeah, I think what's good about you as a journalist is that you just want to get the facts.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that cover things and a lot of people that want to go into media actually care about what other people think of them, and you don't. And I think that's great. Or you're just able to keep your cool under fire. Like even when we were at the Capitol.
Yeah.
We were at the Capitol during a trans rights protest. Well, it's not even I don't even want to call it that because it's not. It's a big pharma protest to, like, it's really a protest to put more money in the companies of large pharmaceutical companies.
I don't know about that.
Either way, we got thrown out of the building because they thought they confused us with being one of those protesters. And you were just right in the cop's face, just keeping the camera. You kept the camera steady the entire time through all types of craziness. And, like, this was nothing compared to what you dealt with during the summer. And so I think that's admirable. Like, knowing that you can keep the camera steady during calamitous situations is what makes for a good journalist, is what I was trying to say.
Yeah, no. And the thing is, I have a really deep-rooted belief that, like, it's really important for people to be informed. And I think that information needs to come with as little bias as possible, and it's tough. I think it takes training, and I do think it takes experience to get that done. But at school, that's what I learned. It was like the best thing you could do for people is give them good information.
Agreed. You have to be somebody that people trust. Even if people don't like you, people are going to say, okay, well, at least this guy's operating in good faith and trying his best to tell the truth.
Yeah.
And I really genuinely want people to feel that way about me. And there are going to be some people that really will never like me or feel that way about me because they'll associate me with being on a certain side. And also because they want to be the ones who dominate the flow of information.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like, but let's get back to what we were talking about with the protest.
The
we disagree.
Act,
no, not the well. Everybody knows the Restrict Act is fascism. Everybody knows that the Restrict Act is Patriot Act 2.0 pretty much. Like they can ban you from using a currency that's not within the realm of the U.S. financial system. They can not honor FOIA requests. They can put you in jail for 20 years for using a VPN to go on whatever those websites are.
Yeah.
It takes away all of the freedoms and liberties that we were told come with living in the United States.
Yeah. True.
And it's absolutely bananas. And one of the things I also realized too is that people think we're losing our freedoms and this and that. But what people also need to understand is that maybe we never really had those freedoms to begin with, because before Twitter, before Facebook, before YouTube, before all of this information was circulating so easily, it was a lot easier for a very small group of very well-connected billionaires to control the flow of information without people even knowing. And people had the illusion that they were living in a free country when, in fact, they just didn't know any better.
Yeah.
And I think that now that the mask is kind of coming off, they want to put Pandora back in the box. And I don't think you can without openly making laws that restrict the freedoms that we thought we had.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, it's just that we're experiencing, like, this huge paradigm shift in the way that information gets shared. And I really think the government's struggling to take control of that type of flow of information, right? Because now it's a free-for-all. You could share whatever you want on hundreds of different platforms and reach millions of people. And guess what? The government can't do anything to stop you.
Well, except
like
for trying
they
to
used to be able to.
Except for trying to create laws like the Restrict Act.
Oh yeah. That's why you see the Restrict Act. It's a way to try to control that flow of information.
It's about reining in the flow of information. And here's the problem: when you start doing that, you're familiar with like the whole New World Order stuff, right?
A little bit.
You know about like the global government and like having to use like an RFID chip or like central bank digital currencies and this type of like digital feudalism.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, here's the thing, right? And it's that like that is a real fear that people need to worry about, and I'm very like hyper focused and afraid of that stuff happening, which is why I'm always talking about Bitcoin and talking about ways that you can opt out and trying to reach people and be very nice about how, or even use like comedy to help people like understand how crazy this path they're heading on is. But the other thing that people need to understand is that if everything that these connected billionaires want to do, if their desires start coming true, right, and you get the central bank digital currencies, you limit the flow of information, you pass stuff like the Restrict Act, all that's going to do is limit people's ability to acquire knowledge when knowledge is easily accessible. And you have and you also start demotivating people to actually want to create and innovate and make new things to improve society. And when you have a demoralized generation, eventually people are not going to be smart enough to operate this digital ecosystem that's being perpetuated. And then you just wind up going back to square one.
Do people have to be smart enough though? I mean, like,
you know what I mean? Like,
I think we're approaching an era where like none of that's gonna matter because like we have now artificial intelligence to literally take over all the jobs of most people, and then on top of that, it makes it so that people are easily like manipulated because now you can sort through millions of different profiles and data from people and use that against them, to make them agree, believe, buy, etc. Now you can just puppeteer people, and so at that point, I mean, does it really matter if they're smart enough? Like, because now we have the power to puppeteer.
Okay, maybe, but you still have to be able to manage the AI.
Yeah.
Like you still have to be able to. You still have to make sure the AI is running properly. Unless the AI gets so advanced that they just take over. They just take over.
I really think that we're this close to actually getting to a point where AI is going to be smarter, more capable than any human out there, and that's just going to mean that AI is going to be able to regulate itself. It's going to be able to fix itself. It's going to be able to learn. It's going to have a power in terms of its intelligence way beyond any human brain could ever get even.
But then could you imagine having to be governed by a machine?
It's going to happen.
Like you're not even being governed. You can't even like plead to reason or actually have any agent, have any political activism or a voice for change, because you're going to be talking with a machine that's not even going to recognize what your concerns are or care, because they are literally a machine.
It's going to happen.
Like, it already feels like you're working a machine if you're like entrenched in corporate America.
Yeah.
Right? But now it's actually literal.
And it's going to happen within our lifetime, Alex. Just wait, man. One day we're going to be living in a world completely dominated by AI. I have that as a certainty through the research I've done, everything I've heard from recent developments in AI. I just can't imagine a future that isn't completely and utterly dominated by artificial intelligence.
Okay, so then what's the motivation for humans to do anything?
There isn't any. That's what's scary. Is it there at this point in time? We don't know what we're gonna do with the people that end up out of the job or don't have any function in society as a result of the dominance of AI. I don't think we have a plan.
Do you think that
we're going to be horses?
Do you think that the people, I'm sure a lot of people share these views.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people who go to Davos share some of these concerns.
Davos?
Yeah, the World Economic Forum meetings and stuff.
Oh,
like
yeah.
that. I'm sure that the Davos class probably shares a lot of your viewpoints. So do you think that if they share these viewpoints, they might be, I don't know, trying to figure out a way to like drastically reduce the size of the human population without people realizing that that's what's happening?
Actually, think about this. I said we're like horses, right?
Yeah.
Like when they invented cars, the horse population significantly decreased, and like horses themselves became obsolete. Now, very, very, very few people own horses when everybody used to own horses, and horses are virtually useless. And did we find a way to replace horses or to find another use for them? No, they just became useless and the population decreased. So I don't know. Maybe the population will decrease naturally as humans become less useful in society, or maybe there will be an intentional effort by these big conglomerates to reduce the population.
Do you not think that it could be already happening with everything that's kind of gone down these past few years? Where excess deaths are up by like 20%, and people who are like super healthy athletes are just dropping dead of heart attacks when that stuff would never happen, and like people who are young and fit are just literally dying suddenly, and it's just and it happened when they were forced to consume a certain juice code in order to be able to have a job and travel and do certain things.
I don't know about that because I haven't done a lot of research at like how often that occurs, but I will say that I think that we are getting to a point where we no longer care or no longer value human life the same way that we might have at some point, because now it's all about money. It's all about, getting your product out there, selling it. And I think very few of these corporate like companies or like these corporations don't really care about like your well-being. Like it's been kind of like the thing we've always known, that like nobody cares about our well-being. They just care about how much money we can produce.
Yeah. Hey, do you think that the push towards like trans kids and the mainstreaming of it, right? Because I don't want to I don't want to make this a point where I'm criticizing or being mean to people who are different from me.
Yeah.
Right. That's not the purpose of this.
Well,
but
tell me, how do you feel about trans people in general? First of all.
Well, we talked about this on the phone yesterday. The opposite of love is not hate; it's just indifference, and the opposite of hate is not love; it's also indifference. Mm-hmm. I just feel very indifferent. I think that people are people, and you should.
Do you think there shouldn't be trans people, or do you think that everybody has the right to choose?
I don't think it's a big deal. I think a lot of it isn't a big deal, but I also, with that being said, since it's not a big deal, I shouldn't have to see it everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Like you don't want to see trans people openly be trans, or
no? I just feel like there's always there's a sign, especially in Austin. There's always there's a rainbow sign like every other block, or there's protect trans kids thing, or like having a political party be hyper focused on this one issue when inflation's out of control and we can't afford food and we're on the verge of World War III and nobody knows who Ghislaine Maxwell's clients are, and the stuff like the Restrict Act is trying to be rushed through Congress. I feel as though those are the trans issue on both sides is just nothing but a distraction. That's what I think.
Yeah, I
also think. Sorry to interrupt you. I also think that we were talking about the push towards the fact that humans are going to become more obsolete with AI.
Yeah.
And if you're somebody who believed this and you're a very politically connected person who also may be heavily invested in AI and AI technology and also in the pharmaceutical industry, I would want to create a next generation of people that are going to be less likely to have kids and reproduce either through their own choice or because they were pumped through a whole, or because they have had to take so many medications and hormones that they're no longer able to physically reproduce. And I think that, when you have a generation of trans kids, you are reducing the size of the human population over the next couple of generations, which goes hand in hand with human obsolescence.
Well,
I think that's just another rabbit hole to think about, right?
I almost feel like that's a little bit of a stretch because let's say I did want to reduce the population, right? I would not target the transgender community. Why? Because it's so small. I would just go after your average heterosexual male. I would.
Well, that's what they're doing.
You know what the CIA
Hiram,
did?
that's what they're doing. Okay.
They were making people infertile with injections, back in the 60s. There's been various times where the government makes people infertile and they don't target transgender populations. They just target everybody.
Well, this trans movement is not targeting transgenders. It's targeting regular people to create confusion so that more and more people take the hormones and have these identity crises. That's what I think it is. And like,
I don't see more people being transgender. I think it's the same percentage.
No.
People are more
I think there's
open about it.
No,
now.
there's like a bit. There's been I forgot the exact number, but over the past like 20 years, there's like 100-fold increases of kids high school age and below identifying as LGBTQ, which there is a part of like we're a more accepting society, and that's a good thing.
Yeah,
that's definitely a good thing. Like that is a component. I think that
explains it.
No, I think that's one explanation. I think that is one explanation. That is a good explanation. But I also think that you see stuff on like Nick Jr. where there's like you're exposing like 5-year-old kids on like Disney Kids to stuff that they don't need to like be exposed to. You also have helicopter moms that will give hormones to their kids because like, hey, my son likes to play with my son went to a tea party with his nieces, and so my son is a female. My son likes to wear pink all the time. So I think my son's a female, so we're going to start my son on their hormones right off the bat. Like there are parents who do that, and there's a very little. It doesn't seem like there's very much of a sense of checks and balances to like stop that from happening. And in Canada, apparently, they're trying to pass laws where like they could fine you $25,000 for like misgendering somebody online, but like you could look at child porn and it's like the fine is less. Like there's this shit is going so far in some cases that you have to wonder whether it's about acceptance or whether it's about something else, because like the number of like actual gender clinics in the past 20 years has increased by like over 100-fold, right? And
well, that's because there's more demand.
Yeah, why is there more demand?
Why
so why is there more demand? Like let's talk like why?
Because I think we just live in a more accepting society, so people are more likely to seek treatment, right, than like in the 60s where they could have gotten just killed.
Yeah, for sure, and you don't want to go back to that.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to do that, right? Like I don't want to do that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Right? But there's the Duke Pediatric Gender Clinic that they're doing surgeries for children as young as like 2 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You think a 2-year-old can consent to that?
Look,
like that. That type of stuff is why I'm bringing up that question.
Yeah, like I'll tell you, like the 2-year-old that is too young, right, to make a decision about like ultimately what their gender identity is. But I'm sure that there's a lot of research that shows that like at least in older people, there's some benefit to having like gender affirming therapy or care. I don't know about the whole medical thing. I don't think I have enough information to comment about whether or not minors should be allowed to make medical decisions that can completely transform their lives. But in general,
do you think a 17-year-old could consent and understand the scope of taking out a $300,000 student loan?
A 17-year-old? I mean,
you know what I mean? Like then we're talking about student loan forgiveness, right? Like, do you think like if that's the case, right? And a minor can consent to that, then like, well, a 17-year-old kid can consent to like taking out a massive loan for college, and then the case for student loan forgiveness can start going out the window with that logic.
What do you mean? Like the logic that minors can't make decisions
to life altering? I don't think minors can consent to decisions that are going to be forever life altering, and having a procedure that changes how your body is a forever life altering procedure.
We make life altering decisions all the time
when we're kids. Like what?
Don't
say like piercing your ear or anything like that, because that you could.
No. I mean, like I don't know. As a 13-year-old, I used to rock climb without any equipment. I could have died at various points.
Right, but you also
could have been life altering.
Right, but you could have been fine, right? If you get a surgery, there's no could have. That's 1,000%. It's life altering. If you take out a $300,000 loan, that's 1,000% life altering. There's no other extraneous variable. This episode is brought to you by Balcones Roofing and Remodeling. Have you been leaving your house outside again? Texas weather can wreak havoc on your home, especially your roof. And if you haven't had it inspected lately, chances are that outside elements could be making their way inside. Trust Balcones Roofing and Remodeling to perform a thorough roof inspection and offer long-lasting solutions. They are the only 5-star rated roofer in Austin who specialize in installing the impact-resistant F-Wave Revia and back all roof replacements with a $20,000 guarantee. To schedule a roof inspection, call 512-937-8805 or visit balconesroofsaustin.com.
Well, I mean, there could be with the loan at least. Like you could win the lottery and pay it off. But I think the more like the general point here is that I really don't have an answer for you like in that situation, like because if not 17, if not 18, then is it 20, 25, 30? You know, at what point is somebody old enough to make the decision, you know, to have life altering surgery? Because even 18. adults will get plastic surgery and regret it.
Exactly. So then why are children even? Why are you even entertaining the idea of doing this for children?
I mean,
if adults will regret it, why are we even entertaining the idea of children going through this?
So I've read that like the chances of a child regretting the decision later in life to have a gender or to have surgery relating to their gender identity, that it is extremely rare. Like it's exceedingly rare to where like only like 2 to 5% of people that have that kind of surgery end up changing their mind.
Okay, let's say that is true.
Yeah.
Let's say that's true.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it as a point in favor or anything.
Let's say that you wind up seeing and I think another reason why that might be true right now is because it isn't being pushed at the same magnitude as it was back then.
Yeah.
Right? So because it wasn't pushed as much, the people that did this were probably a lot more sure of it because they weren't being influenced by other extraneous.
Not a large enough sample size.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I think once you start increasing the sample size, which you are going to increase the sample size tremendously with how things are in the education system and with the fact that there's a lot these therapies are way more easily available and they're also becoming way more encouraged, you're going to see that sample size is going to change the results of that study. I really think that's a very real possibility. And also, even if that never changes, and you wind up seeing like a 10, 100-fold increase in that, which you could still see that, right? Because like, you know, even if like 2% of the population, right, winds up going through this, right, compared to like 0.2%, that's a 100-fold increase. You know, even if you see a 100-fold increase, you're going to also see a 100-fold increase. Like you'll also see. Not 100-fold percentage-wise, but let's say like 1% of those people, right? You know, and let's say like you added, hypothetically throwing a number out, you added 10,000 more people go and get these surgeries, right?
Yeah.
And like 2%, that's like another 200 people that regret this decision that are going to be like forever altered by this.
Yeah.
Whereas like you could have just waited until you were like 18, and then maybe, you know, less people would have just gotten that surgery because the people that got it would have just been more comfortable with it, and then they just would have known, and then there'd be less mental illness, less other things that are associated with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there would have to be
my perspective on it, you know?
I think there would have to be a study that could determine whether or not the percentage of people that end up regretting their decision diminishes as people get older. Like, if you make the decision at 18, are you less likely to regret the decision later than if you made the decision at 13 years old or maybe 16? You know, I think that might be a really good, you know,
I think
data
most
point.
That make big decisions like that. So you want to hear a crazy story? When I was like 6 years old,
Yeah.
I was at a camp, right?
Yeah.
And these kids were just making fun of me, right? I didn't know that. I thought they were like my friends because they were like laughing every time I talked. But they told me to keep telling the bus driver that I was a homosexual. You know? And I would tell the driver that, and I'd yell at on the bus because these were like 12-year-old kids, and I was like 6. And I was like, oh, these older kids all like me, and they think I'm funny. You know? And then I was like, well, what does that mean? It's like, oh, well, it's when a guy likes another guy. And I'm like, oh, well, all my friends are guys. You know? Yeah, I guess I am. I guess that's what I am. You know? And so I told my mom that one day. I was like in the bathtub. I was like taking a bath. And I was like, hey, Mom, guess what? I'm a homosexual. And I was like, oh, is that so? Do you know what that means? Like, well, it's it's when another guy likes another guy very much and this and that. And she's like, okay, well what else? And then I just said, well, and then they have sex. And she's like, oh, what happens? And I'm just like, well, you put your penis in the other guy's penis and you pee. Right? And like,
sounds like a South Park episode.
No, I know, but that's what. Anyway, the point is, right? Like, I said all this, right? And my mom walks out of the bathroom and just starts cracking up laughing. And then I finished the bath, and you know what happened after that? My mom never brought it up, and it just like it was just some. My mom would just tell that story to me like once in a while, just when I'm around friends to make people laugh.
Yeah.
Right. Imagine if this had happened in 2020, and I had like some helicopter mom that actually affirmed what I said in the bathtub.
You know, I don't know if your anecdote like really translates, because like I'm sure your parents would know the difference between you really knowing that you're homosexual and like you just saying that because some older kids convinced you. And it looked like, I mean, like you had it all down, right? You made a convincing argument that you could potentially be, you know, gay. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like parents would be a little bit smarter than that, and like it's really rare.
I think so, but there's
that you get a helicopter parent.
No.
Take a one-time situation like that and then transform an entire kid's life.
I don't know, man. We did see a lot of crazy people at the Capitol the other day.
I mean, I don't know about crazy, but very passionate people for sure.
If only they could redirect that passion towards like helping us figure out who is on Ghislaine Maxwell's client list, or not having World War III with Russia, or stopping the Restrict Act from manifesting. I think if they could redirect that passion towards something that everybody can get on board with, I think that, I don't know, there'd be a lot more sympathy for that cause.
Well, I mean, we could say that about just about any issue, right? Like any group, any interest group, we could say, hey, redirect your attention to like something bigger and more important, and all of a sudden, like, I mean, everybody has their individual grievances, right?
And that's a pretty big individual grievance. Like, look, here's my take, right? If I saw a protest like this, right?
Yeah.
And one of the trans people was talking about how the Restrict Act hurts trans people the most, instead of like making comical videos on my Instagram or my Twitter at these protests, I would be more than happy to just go talk to that person who's holding the Restrict Act sign and post that, even if it might get me less views. But nobody's doing any of that.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly have that like really strong focus on the Restrict Act, and there's just a lot of people that aren't educated, and so they might not feel as passionate or aren't as focused because it just doesn't seem like.
Okay, but you understand that it's like when people are hyper focused on the establishment sanctioned protests, they're less likely to actually acquire the education on what actually is important. Like preserving our basic freedoms that come with living in America.
Well, you know, I'll say this. I think that like we as humans like have a very complicated world to navigate, where like even just choosing what shoes you put on. And today I have my Crocs.
I like them. They look good.
But just choosing that is in itself like a philosophical debate. Like, what if you wear shoes by Nike that were made in sweatshops, right? Or what if you wear shoes made organically, but they, I don't know, they harm the environment? Like, what if,
sweatshops harm the environment too. So
yeah, true, exactly. So like, I'm just saying that generally, like, every decision you make nowadays has like a multi-layered kind of situation going on, and it's like you are overwhelming people with information and decisions, and people just end up focusing on what affects them most immediately.
I guess. I also think too, and there might be some bias as well, but it does feel as though there's a strong correlation between some of those trans rights activists and the people that, called me a Nazi because I didn't think we should have lockdowns, or wanted me to be a second-class citizen for not wanting to get a vaccine, or who thought that Joe Rogan should be deplatformed from the internet, or who think that I shouldn't be allowed to like speak freely without going to jail or having my like ability to buy and sell things revoked, or people that think I should live in a 15-minute city and not be able to grow my own food. Right, and I feel like there's like there's just this correlation between those activists and people who also like seem to share and mirror every single one of these like anti-freedom Davos talking points.
Well, I mean, like,
not a causation, not everybody, right? I'm just want to make it clear, like, it's not everybody, but it feels like if I were to go talk to these people one-on-one and ask them if they supported lockdowns, I'm sure probably over 90% of those people would have said, yes, we supported lockdowns. And they would have used the same talking points that people had in 2020, which caused the economy to shut down, which in turn has caused inflation to skyrocket, has brought us on the verge of World War III, is causing our digital freedoms to be eroded at an unprecedented pace. The list goes on. It's creating violent crime waves in like inner city neighborhoods that we're not really a part of here in Austin, but these things are happening. So it's like,
let me ask you.
Sure.
So a lot of people, right, that are like conservative believe that more government regulation is bad, right? But recently you see a lot of people that trend right, like passing regulations like books in schools, or like in the case of transgender rights, like restricting who has access to medical care. What do you have to say about like folks that are saying, well, that's ironic that you say you want less government and less regulation, and your party is literally passing, because you're saying that there's a lot of people that are trying to restrict freedoms, but I feel like there's also a lot of people trying to restrict freedoms on the other end, right? It's literally the same thing, just on another topic.
I think the abortion thing kind of did that, so I'll give you that. I think that you have to also take a look. Everything gets painted with a very big, broad brush stroke. I think if you take a look at some of the books that they want to get rid of, they're not appropriate and shouldn't be in school-age libraries. I've had this discussion with people, okay? Like with some of these, like there's this one lady I know named Kristen Bentley, right? And I see her at the Capitol all the time, and she always has like a filthy book alert. And I'm like, listen, there are some pornographic books that were like where you're showing people sucking dick in like the middle school library, and you're seeing it's like graphic images of blowjobs and like people questioning their identity, and like a whole bunch of like crazy like sexual.
You think people questioning their identity is something that should be inappropriate in schools?
I think it depends on what age you are.
Or is it just
I think
pornographic?
I think it depends on what age.
Content?
I think that stuff is very age dependent. I think that it shouldn't. I think this type of stuff should not be in elementary schools. I don't really think it should be in middle school. I think in high school it changes the game. I think high school is fine. I saw the movie Kids. Like, listen, I saw the movie Kids in high school, and that made me never want to have unprotected sex with like a chick I didn't know. I saw Basketball Diaries, and made me never want to do heroin. Like, I think some of these graphic, like there are some very graphic books and graphic movies that you should show to people in school. It's just wait until they become like 15, or just wait until they're a little bit older. I just think that's a better idea.
Let me ask.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ask.
So, I think that nowadays we live in a world where like elementary schoolers are constantly exposed to all kinds of information and have all kinds of questions about all kinds of things, right? Like they're watching TikToks, they're watching the war in Ukraine, they're watching people blow up, literally. They're watching, people have sex, they're watching pornographic content. I mean, like, kids are getting bombarded with information nowadays, very different than before. What do you think we should do about that? Like, what if a kid doesn't even read a book, he just gets exposed to it?
So that's what I've actually told. I've actually did an episode with this representative, Brian Slayton, and I was talking to him about that. And I said, like, the books do very little to actually stop this. And the problem is the problem is what these kids are seeing on the internet. So I think that when it comes to pornography,
and you don't want restrictions on the internet, right? So
okay. Here's my. I don't want restrictions on the internet, but I think that like there should be an assessment of what is harmful and what is not, and how harmful it is, and what the effects of it can be.
What?
So hold on. So when it comes to pornography, I don't think you should like restrict or ban that, but I honestly think that in order to go on a pornographic website, you just have to like it shouldn't be free. You should just have to pay to go on the pornographic website.
You think you should pay?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely, yes.
Well, why can't it be free?
Because that stuff is like crack.
What do you mean, like crack?
Like, if you look at large quantities of, you ever like spent like you ever like went down a rabbit hole and you just were like really bored, or had something was bothering you, or you just had nothing to do, and all of a sudden you like spend like 2 hours on Pornhub looking for the perfect video?
No.
Shut the fuck up. Yes, you have. Everybody has.
Funny.
Everybody has. Okay.
I can see where you're going with this. Yeah.
Okay. Everybody has. If you haven't, good for you. I have in the past. And I felt like shit afterwards. Like my brain was foggy. I couldn't communicate.
Yeah.
Even like sexually, like it affects your like sex drive when it comes to having real interpersonal relationships with people.
Yeah.
It's really dangerous. Okay. And if you're a child and that's like your first exposure to that, it's not. You're not going through your dad's Playboy magazines anymore. You're conditioning your brain to think that you've had sex with 500 women when you've not been with anybody. it's gonna destroy your ability to have like physical intimacy and human to human connections, and that's gonna that's gonna destroy families even more. It's gonna desensitize us to interpersonal touch. It's gonna dehumanize the human population. While this AI stuff is propagating, so it has a lot of problems. Not to mention all the malware and all the stuff with all the cybersecurity issues that could go on your phone or your computer. And like, if you, let's say you're sharing your computer or something like that with the family, and like your 12-year-old son starts going on a bunch of websites, like, what if dad's and mom's finances are on that website and now like everything gets hacked and destroyed because you're going on all these sites? Like, there have to actually be these protections are just literally to protect like mom and dad. No one's punishing you, no one's putting you in jail, no one's doing anything. They're just saying, listen, yo, you put a credit card on to go on porn to look at a pornographic website. You just have to pay to use it. This way, the kid can't go on it.
But now, like now you can't go on it if you're poor. So like now that when you add money into the equation, you can't go on it.
So okay,
like, now when you add money into the equation,
what a shame! What a shame! People who are impoverished are not going to be able to destroy their brains and their souls with toxic content. That's hard. You spare me. Come on.
Well, no,
you're poor, you can't fucking jerk off 10 times a day on the internet.
That's pretty fucked up. You know, in my opinion, it's pretty fucked up. Like, what if you're broke and you just want to, you want to beat one off and you can't because you don't have money?
Well, I guess it'll motivate you to want to make more money.
Like,
I guess it'll just motivate.
It's interesting to me that, like, we both have this really strong opinion about the Restrict Act, but at the same time, like, you would want to regulate, adult content online. Which is almost like you're one step down from the Restrict Act.
No, I'm not.
I'm adding a paywall instead of restricting
it all. That's
altogether.
it. You're adding a paywall. I think that's a simple middle ground solution.
No, but a paywall just like then a paywall is just about economics. Like, it's just about your
it's about wanting to take that extra step to not look at that.
It's like you know what it's like? It's like cash and bail bonds. Like, you know what? Anything's legal as long as you have money to pay your way out. Like speeding tickets, who gives a shit? You can pay to get those like removed. Like, if you have enough money, those laws no longer apply to you because you have enough money to pay your way out. So like, when you create paywalls, you're just like making it legal for people that have enough money.
You're not making it legal. It's still legal. It's just a paywall.
Yeah, exactly. But you're like making it.
It's not going to be that expensive. Just like, yeah, if you're gonna go on these websites, you just gotta pay $5 a month or $10. Just pay $10 a month. Like, anybody can afford $10 a month. That's it. But the fact that you have to actually you have to enter a credit card information and take that extra step is just gonna be enough of a deterrent.
That's why Pornhub isn't in Utah right now. Have you heard that? Have you heard about that?
I heard something about that. Yeah.
Pornhub is shut down in Utah because Utah passed a law that obligated any porn or adult content website to verify the age of the people entering by like actually having them submit an ID, and like
good.
Pornhub was like, we can't do that, so they just left the market.
All right, good. I guess less of that stuff in Utah. Go talk to a real girl.
Man.
All right, cool. Go talk to a real girl.
Rip Utah people that want to beat one off and can't because
then get her to talk to a real girl and have a real relationship. Good. That makes you happier anyway.
Well, I mean, like, you could say that about the Restrict Act. Like, good, you're not online anymore. Like, you could just go and meet a real person instead of going online or using a VPN.
Yeah, but that actually has to deal with information that affects you in your day-to-day life to navigate the world around you. Looking at mindless porn on the internet actually takes away from your ability to effectively navigate the goings-on in the real world. I mean, you know what I mean? So it's different.
I mean,
come on, man. It's a lot different.
In principle, it's the same.
Its magnitude's different.
In principle, it's the same. But when you look at the context, I mean, obviously, like, porn isn't as important as like some of these political decisions being made. But in principle, like, it's anti-libertarian.
It's not. No, it's not. That's like saying we shouldn't have age of consent laws because it's libertarian. Like, it's anti-libertarian. Like, that's not serious. Like, 5-year-old. Like, we need drag queens need to twerk for 5-year-olds because I'm a libertarian. Like, that type of stuff is why libertarians have historically always lost.
Because
of that, it's like, it's not serious. But like,
have you heard that saying? You give an inch, they take a foot. Like, how many of these small?
Okay, cool. Fine.
You
give an inch, and now all of a sudden, like, you give an inch. Then someone could say, okay, well, you give an inch to drag queens, and they're gonna make pedophilia illegal. You know, like then you
Well,
could
I
do
mean,
that. Then,
but you're saying that
can happen too.
drag queens are pedophiles. But
I never said that.
They're not.
I never said that they're pedophiles.
Then why would they? Why would they go to pedophilia?
I'm just saying you give an inch and you take a mile. I'm just making an example.
I mean, yeah, I see what you mean.
I said when you legalize drag queens twerking for children, when
But that doesn't legalize
pedophilia.
pedophilia. I don't think that's.
You said it's one step, slippery slope. You can go from one thing to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. So it's just about we're using the slippery slope argument. I don't think most drag queens are pedophiles. Just FYI, I don't think that.
Yeah.
I think most people who do this are just performers who want to perform. I think drag shows are like I've walk in a house together and see people doing drag shows and stuff, and I'm like, yo, these queens are like really athletic. Like it takes an art and a skill to do this, right? Like I'm not saying that shouldn't exist or be allowed, right? I just don't understand. Like you also see the material and what's going on at these shows, and it's just it boggles my mind why you would want why you would bring like a child to these events. And also, as a performer, why you think it would be okay to perform in front of a child? Like you don't see Bring Your Kid to Work Day at fucking at Palazzo.
I don't know what Palazzo.
It's a strip club.
Oh, okay.
Yellow Rose, like you know what I mean. You don't have Yellow Rose performers going into the elementary school and showing their routine off.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if that's. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you on that about that. Exactly.
It just feels like there's a really easy middle ground approach. And when it comes to these banned books, you know what's a really good idea to fix that problem? What? Anytime there's a book that like a large percentage of parents in the district, and so like you're gonna find banned books that some people think are bad and some don't. And what you do is you get the parent, you bring parents together, you take a vote on what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, and based on like a vote, you decide what stays in the library, right? And then whatever gets removed from the library, you just replace that book with a book on gardening. Or just replace it with like a book on like financial literacy, because gardening and financial literacy are literally for everybody. Like there's nothing more inclusive than like, growing tomatoes.
You know one thing I think about a lot.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
that just seems like a really easy, quick fix. Like, okay, fine, we'll replace it with a book on gardening.
Let me tell you something. One thing that like I think about a lot is what I learned in this conference about end of life care. For people that have like terminal illnesses, right?
Yeah.
So parents could get cancer, they get sick. What do you tell the kids, right? Like a lot of people don't want to tell their kids straight up, like, hey, your parents have cancer, they're gonna die.
Okay.
But what I've learned is that like kids are a lot more understanding and mentally resilient than you would expect. Like they have a pretty good ability of gaining a pretty in-depth understanding of really complicated topics like terminal illnesses, like cancer, and I think like at what point are we over sheltering or over protecting our kids when there is a really good chance that they are smart enough to develop an opinion that is mature about some of these really complicated or quote unquote taboo subjects? Like what did kids in the past do when like they grew up in tribes and everybody was naked and whatnot? Like were they traumatized, or were they just like explain these really complicated human interactions in a way that they understood? Like were these kids like perverted growing up seeing tits out, like because people in the past were naked sometimes, or you know what I mean? Like what about those kids?
Yeah, I think that those kids also had a better relationship with the land that they lived on. They grew their own food. They weren't being exposed to consuming toxic chemicals. They weren't being bombarded with a bunch of they weren't being bombarded with a bunch of stimulus everywhere they went. And you still had like, even in those places, there was still some sense of there were still basic guidelines for how to act. Like they still had like tradition. You still had traditional gender roles. Like the men hunted, the men killed the food, and the women helped raise the child within a village model. Mm-hmm. So you had like stable adult role models that helped shape and build a society. Right now,
but what about all the tits?
So what?
Well, exactly. So like, what about all the porn? Like, what's the big deal?
People weren't being bombarded with like watching gangbangs and like watching all types of like crazy shit that's going down.
I mean, it was just happening in public back then. And if it wasn't happening in
people
public,
didn't just have sex in front of their like.
I
People
bet
just
you
have sex in front of their kids.
teepees weren't very good at keeping kids out.
Yeah, but there was still structure, right? If you're like bombarded with like, and also, even if that were to be true, like you're not as a kid in that type of situation, you're not spending like hours and hours and hours and hours just trying to find jerk off material.
Yeah.
You know, so there is a slight difference, but what you're saying makes sense. Like there has to be that discussion because you can't like the pearl clutching stuff is actually like the pearl clutching behavior about this stuff from people who are like on the right is kind of gross too, and it discredits a lot of it discredits a lot of
our
concerns.
ability to grow.
Like, right. So I think
like
that
really undermines
what you're saying makes sense, and but it doesn't mean that like the way they are going about teaching kids in the schools and the way this whole like agenda is being perpetuated is good either, right? You can still put that into context.
Yeah.
So what you're saying makes sense though. Like what you're saying about like hundreds of years ago when people lived in tribes, that's all true. And you need to like raise kids to have a healthy relationship with the human body and a healthy relationship with
their peers.
Yeah, and it feels as though based on what I'm seeing right now, that the people that are that these kids are around and the material that these kids are exposed to is not doing that. Mm-hmm. That's just that's genuinely what I feel.
I think if anything, like it really does like create an image of society that doesn't exist. Like if you're watching porn, you know, right? You start assuming that everybody has 12-inch dicks and has sex for 4 hours straight, and the majority of the population has sex for 20 minutes and don't have 12-inch dicks, right? But you don't know that as a kid because all you saw was the porn on Pornhub.
Most women don't like when you bust a nut on their face.
I mean, I don't know. That's an individual decision that everybody makes.
I wish they did, but they do not, unfortunately.
I mean, yeah, I don't know what to tell you.
Oh man, so there is that though, but like that goes in hand in hand with what we're talking about on that stuff.
I mean, yeah. So what I would say, what all this means for like some of the things we've been seeing, like some of these trans protests, is that like there is something to say about like the validity of these people's feelings and whether or not like people are mature enough to make those decisions. And then also I think there's a really good discussion to have about like, you know, at what age and what would it take for somebody to be mature enough to make such difficult life-altering decisions. Also, there's a little bit of both, right?
There's both. There's also one thing we talked about on the phone yesterday too, is that the food companies, and this has been scientifically proven, and it's that the chemicals and additives that they put in your processed food actually will have a profound and noticeable effect on human sexuality and gender function. And back in the 2010s, they were trying to pass legislation to stop these additives or have the customer know what's going to be put in their food, right? And you know what the food companies started doing?
Monsanto?
Yeah, you know what a lot of the food companies started focusing on and talking about towards like the 2013 and 2014 when all this stuff started happening?
Yeah.
Trans rights.
Mm-hmm. I've never done any research, so I could.
So I think that like I had some right wing influencer chick on a while ago, like last summer. It was actually like a year ago, almost a little less than a year ago. And you know, a lot of these like TPUSA and like right wing influencers are like, they'll just spout the right wing talking points without really having a nuanced discussion about what this means and how this affects society and how do you communicate these points with people who don't have the same strong beliefs with you.
Yeah.
Right? Because the goal is like I want to be able to talk about how I feel with everybody and explain it really calmly and figure out like, well, what's the solution? Like I'm not right about anything. I barely know anything. I just have my opinions and the purpose is to grow. Right?
Yeah.
You know, and so I was like explaining that stuff to her, and she's like, okay, well, a lot of it was just like, she's like, wow, I guess I didn't see it that way, but nothing really changed, right? Like a lot of the stuff still didn't get fully through. I'm just like, well, you know that like the stuff that we consume in our foods and some of the medications that people are forced to get by these pharma companies, like
chemical in the water,
all that stuff,
right,
or like the fact that you need like 50 different vaccines to go to kindergarten now, all that stuff could have an effect on like what you're upset about. So like maybe with that being said, you like talk to people in the opposing party and figure out how you can like, I don't know, address these, hold these food companies and pharma companies in check, right? And I feel like you got to meet people where they are. Like when we went to that, we didn't release the video, but when we were talking about the Restrict Act, remember that abortion protester that we talked to?
Yeah.
And we asked why she was here and how she was feeling. And instead of talking about abortion, we're just like, well, how do you feel about the Restrict Act? And then we used how the Restrict Act could prevent her from seeking this type of care later on in the future. And they were like mad receptive. They were way more receptive about this one than I thought that they would be. And I think that like meeting people where they were at, or we went to this guy John Rosenthal's office, and his staffer was awesome. Like he was really on board and really totally on the same page with us about why this thing was dangerous. And then we went and talked to some Republican who was one of the most liberty-minded members in the Texas Senate. He didn't even know what this thing was.
That's true.
So I think the whole left-right paradigm is actually very stupid.
I think labels are stupid. I agree with you. So, but I have a question for you. So if you really think that Monsanto and other food companies are having this like huge influence on the mental health of society, specifically to where they're like turning people slowly towards like, having something like, I don't know, you can just call it gender dysphoria.
I don't think they're doing this on purpose. I just think that this is like what a byproduct is of
why hasn't it happened to you? Why hasn't it happened to you?
Well, I'm not everything happens to everybody.
Yeah.
Right? But I do think, and I also am very conscious about what I eat.
Yeah.
And my mom and dad were pretty good about nutrition when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But I experienced a bunch of like developmental problems after I got my like MMR shots when I was like 2 years old.
Yeah.
And they had put me in like special classes and they tried to medicate me and tried to do all this stuff when I was a little kid. And had I not gotten those shots or had I gotten it on a more delayed schedule, I may have had a much easier time. I may not have had the same experience growing up. And so I'm okay, I didn't have that happen to me, but I had something else happen to me as a result of these pharma companies. And when I was growing up, there was like almost an incentive for teachers to give every kid a learning disability and medicate kids who did not need medication. And there were kids I went to school with who were overly medicated their entire childhood, and they did not turn out well.
Yeah.
So and then a lot of these same people are now promoting these surgeries for minors. So it just feels like everything is sort of tied together without being able to like
it's tough
really
like,
fully connect the dots.
I think like
you know what I mean? Like,
do more people have ADHD nowadays, or do more people just get diagnosed? Like,
I think there's both. I also think that when you're exposed to so much stimulus, it's hard to you're just going to naturally have a shorter attention span.
Yeah. I do think that social media has decreased people's attention span, and attention span is a big focus of ADHD. But nevertheless, like, is it more diagnoses or is it more ADHD? Is it more like transgender folks, or is it more people coming out, or is it like, what's going on here?
I don't know. I think there's degrees of truth to everything that we've said.
Yeah.
And there's no one. It's not a blanket statement, but there are little degrees of truth as to why things are happening.
And here's the important part: is that you need to keep in mind that like the truth is in degrees, and it's not in absolutes.
All right. Hey, before we wrap up, we got to talk about the Foster thing.
Okay.
All right. We got like 5 minutes. 5 minutes. 2 minutes.
1 minute. 20 minutes over.
Oh shit. Well, I guess we'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah,
but
talked for a long time.
Damn, we got to talk about the Foster thing, conviction.
Yeah, Abbott's making a mistake.
Well, we're switching to locals, and I get fine, whatever. We'll talk about it in the bonus.
Yeah,
footage.
Abbott's making a mistake, but we'll talk about that later.
All right, Hiram, how do we get a hold of you?
Hiram.com. I'm Hiram.com. I am HIRM.com. Hiram.G.Garcia on Instagram, or Hiram Gilberto Garcia on Facebook. You can reach out to me on social media.
All right, Hiram.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Alex,
had a blast. Always.
Thank you.